When Qualcomm and Microsoft teamed up to make connected PCs, they promised devices that would remain always on, always online, and provide access to the apps you need to work on the go. So far, parts of that puzzle are missing, like eSIM support from carriers. But that hasn't stopped the first wave of laptops, starting with the $599 NovaGo, from trying to leave their mark. It's meant to deliver the benefits of smartphone-like connectivity and battery life in a laptop, but unfortunately also highlights the limits of an unproven platform. Let's be real, the NovaGo doesn't have the prettiest design. There's nothing much to say about its staid black on gray color scheme, and it doesn't have sexy, skinny sides, although I appreciate its sturdy build. It doesn't help that it's heavier than most ultra-portables too. Slick machines like MacBooks, Dell's XPS's, or HP Spectres are lighter and more attractive for sure, but they also tend to cost at least $1,000. Perhaps the NovaGo's relatively bland looks serve as a good reminder that we're really dealing with a mid-range, albeit ambitious machine here. The 13-inch Full HD screen on this thing is fine inside an office or a cab, but suffers under direct sunlight. It's hard to read what you're working on outdoors as a result of both the dimness and the reflective finish of the screen. Audio is also problematic. Sound is muffled when I play music with the laptop in my lap. You're probably not going to blast the speakers when you're using this in, say, an airport or a restaurant, unless you're desperate or inconsiderate, but it's still worth noting. I had no trouble with the NovaGo's keyboard though. The keys are amply spaced and offer comfortable travel and satisfyingly spongy feedback. Don't expect ThinkPad level of travel or response though. This is a better keyboard than the MacBooks and MateBooks I tote around to shows, but it's not surprising from a thicker device like the NovaGo. The touchpad, meanwhile, is adequately roomy, although I don't like that the fingerprint sensor is embedded in the top right corner, taking up space. Pinch and swipe gestures on the trackpad work well in my experience. No major complaints here, aside from the occasional mistake when I'm trying to drag to highlight text. Something the NovaGo has over the competition is its relatively generous array of ports. You'll find 2 USB-A ports plus HDMI and microSD sockets. There's even a headphone jack. Oddly, for a device meant to be similar to a smartphone in battery and connectivity, the NovaGo lacks a USB-C port. You'll have to lug around a separate Asus-specific charger for this laptop. Oh, and finally, the integrated eSIM and SIM card slot. Our review unit came with a T-Mobile SIM card in the slot, although in the future you should be able to pick your own carrier over the air via the embedded eSIM. Thanks to the Snapdragon 835 and its included X16 gigabit LTE modem, the NovaGo reached impressive speeds in most parts of New York City. Speaking of the 835, how does a smartphone-grade CPU hold up when powering a Windows 10 laptop? Well, it depends. Analyzing the NovaGo's performance is a complicated task. The typical benchmarks we use, like PCMark, don't work on the ARM-based emulator. And honestly, I'm not sure it's fair or logical to pit the Snapdragon 835 against high-end laptop chips like Intel's Core i7 or i5. But I'll say this, in general I encountered few lags on the NovaGo. Sometimes it stuttered when loading a web page that's animation heavy, and it slows down when I have more than 3 dozen Chrome tabs open. But I've also been able to do some light editing on Photoshop CC while writing this script and having Audacity open in the background with no noticeable delay. Let's be very clear about what software this runs, by the way. By default, the NovaGo will run Windows 10 S, which limits the apps you can install to stuff you can find in Microsoft Store. But from now till some point in 2019, Microsoft is offering all connected PCs a free upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, which is what my review unit shipped with. This let me download and install 32-bit apps like Audacity and Photoshop CC. You won't be able to use 64-bit programs and even some 32-bit apps, since the emulator designed for these ARM-based systems can't process those. Depending on your workflow, this could be a deal breaker. The best thing about taking this laptop out to work on the go is its connectivity. It's such a joy to unfold the NovaGo in a cab or at a restaurant and not have to set up a hotspot or ask for the Wi-Fi password to get connected. After a while, I just started to take my internet connection for granted, which is incredibly freeing. The notebook wakes from sleep ever so slightly faster than other ultra-portable PCs, making it just a bit more like a smartphone in unlocking quickly. By the way, you can also use the NovaGo as a tablet or prop it up in tent mode thanks to its sturdy 360-degree hinge. I rarely used it in anything other than a traditional laptop, but for those who want to give desk-side presentations, this is a nifty feature. On our battery test, which involves looping a local Full HD video, the NovaGo lasted a respectable 14 hours before conking out. That's lower than the promised 20 hours and poorer than the Surface Books and the Surface Laptop. But remember, it's also hundreds of dollars cheaper than those. Ultimately, my biggest issue with the NovaGo is its app compatibility, or lack thereof. While I didn't run into major issues installing my favorite apps, potentially not being able to install something I might need is like constantly looking over my shoulder for a stalker. The NovaGo is a respectable debut for Windows and Snapdragon. It lasts long, offers speedy connections almost everywhere, and performs well for the price. The hardware could be better. A brighter display and better placed speakers would be welcome upgrades. You might be better off waiting a year to buy into the connected PC ecosystem, seeing as one of its standout features, which is eSIM support from carriers, is not yet live. Plus, it'll give developers time to make more compatible apps if they choose to. For now, I struggle to see the appeal of the NovaGo as a primary workhorse, but it's more than capable as a secondary laptop specifically for productivity on the go. It's a valiant first effort from Asus, Qualcomm, and Microsoft that will hopefully get better the second go around.